Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is a CPA bodybuilder. Today's guest is Jon Piersanti. Jonathan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Quentin, thanks for having me. Super stoked for being on the show. Can't wait to chat it up and, let's get to it. Let's get right in it.
For sure, my man. So Jon, the first question that I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
All right. Off the top of my head, honestly, I think there's I would say three different bodybuilders that all have their own individual traits that I admire, that I would really appreciate. The first one being Jay Cutler. He was always someone that I would look up to in terms of business side of things, with how he handles himself and where how far he's come just from being a bodybuilder and becoming the businessman that he is. So definitely Jay Cutler, of course, for his physique too. Like, everyone knows the quad stomp. Like, the quad stomp is like iconic. I got that in my basement gym, just as a poster up in there. But Jay Cutler, number one. I would say Dorian Yates for sure, number two, just in terms of training style and after watching like Blood and Guts and all that stuff, it was just, I think if you didn't get motivated by that or inspired, something's wrong, because I think almost every bodybuilder after watching that was just like, damn, like that's some crazy intensity, and you know what I mean. So yeah, Dorian Yates, number two. And I would say, honestly, this one might bring a little bit of heat or controversy or whatever, or skepticism, but I would say Rich Piana. I have to say it, as much as he was I wouldn't really say he's my favorite bodybuilder in terms of the competitive side of things and putting in work, but once again, as a businessman and being able to market yourself, I think no one else out there could really have done what he's done in the time that he had, right? So that's something I really admire too, and even just the look, just something different from the usual what we always see, right? So yeah, those are the three favorite bodybuilders, man. Jay, Dorian, and Rich, really.
Excellent, yeah. Man. I love that. Definitely with Rich Piana, there was definitely a uniqueness and a freak factor, right?
Yep, exactly. And that's something that, people say what they say, and, however he got to where he got, that it is what it is. But to make it in this sport and to be at that level and of success is just, you gotta respect that, man. Like, you can't deny that. So with the time that he had, I mean, he was a big influence. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Love it, man. So, Jon, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
Damn. Okay. So this was, let's see here. So my father was always into training. So growing up, that was something I've always seen, but I think I actually started around the age of, maybe 15. I would say 15. And so that was almost 12 years ago. Yeah, I'm 27 now, so about 12 years ago. And man, 12 years ago. Wow.
So tell me, before we kind of get more into your backstory, Jon, you said your dad was kind of always into training. Did he compete? Did he bodybuild? Did he just lift weights? And then how did he kind of get into strength training then himself?
Yeah, so it was something that I've always seen as a kid growing up, and I always wondered, like, what's he doing? Like, I as a kid, I had no clue that lifting weights would like be changing your body, and like he was doing something, for a reason, right? So it was always intriguing to me, but I didn't know as a kid what was really happening. And then as I got older, you kind of learn and understand. And I realized it was because, he wanted to shape his body up and stay in shape and stay healthy, work on his strength, stuff like that. Right. So he wasn't a competitive bodybuilder, but he was pretty, I think I took after his side of things and with personality in terms of like the OCD sort of thing, and very extreme with anything that we do. So I think really big into it. He never pursued it, but I think he could. He could have. He looked pretty good, but yeah, that's really what really got me going initially, you know.
Very cool. So talk to me a little bit, Jon. I love kind of getting the childhood and backstory of my guests. So talk about where you grew up. Talk about your home life. Talk about that younger years in terms of, were you involved in sports? Were you involved in skateboarding? What were you involved with up to about high school? And then we'll stop there, and then we'll move on from there. Okay.
I love this. I love the idea of you incorporating this into all the competitive athletes side of things on social media, right? Because it's really cool to see the backstories behind people. So I grew up in Vaughan, Ontario, which is just north of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Growing up, my family was great. They've always been there for me. Everything's been perfect. That was something that was always, I can't complain. Super, super happy having supportive family and all that stuff. I was really big into music before all this. So, I would play guitar, piano, drums, all that kind of stuff. That was kind of my escape. So anything that would cause me stress, or where I would, dealing with some shit, I would just go into my little studio and just play. And I did that up until, I would say, like end of high school. I was really big into that. I had the long hair. I wasn't into training at all. But like I said, growing up as a kid, I did see my dad do it, and I always saw that, and I always thought it was pretty cool. And then high school comes around. Things happen where you're trying to figure out who you are, who you want to be, all that kind of stuff. So I dabbled with the weights here and there, and I was into it. I enjoyed it still, but it was nothing extreme, nothing crazy. And then I would say it was always an escape for me. So I feel like once I started dabbling with the weights, the music kind of side of things got pushed aside, and it kind of took over. And that became my escape. So, growing up as a kid, people say things that they don't realize, or, whether it's you're being bullied or getting made fun of, picked on, this and that. To be honest, I was always the quiet kid being into music. So I wasn't really that confident in myself and all that, because lifting weights and working on my strength and changing the way I look kind of brought that confidence for me. And then it just became this whole thing in itself after, with, competing and all that. But it was essentially my escape for dealing with, all the shit from growing up and the childhood experiences, essentially. Which I'm grateful for, that I even went through those things, because I guess they shape you. And, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go through those things, and handle it the way I did. Right. So that's a little backstory on, the Jon before what everyone sees here on social media. Right.
So tell me, Jon, how did you get exposed to music? What type of music were you involved with? What type of music did you play? And why was that an escape for you? Or what did music, or does music still to this day do for you? So how did you get exposed to music? What type of music were you involved with? And what does it do for you?
Basically, so I started out with guitar, and then, I played piano, did drums. I was always into the rock kind of stuff, and that was through my dad. Once again, I guess my dad has a big influence, right, on it. And as you grow up, whatever's around you, right? So I got into the rock music through him, but just like the classics, right? Like, the Led Zeppelins and I guess like Bon Jovi's and Motley Crue's, and like just the classic 80s era, right? And then once I got into music deeper, I would get into the harder metal stuff, and I started going extreme that way. So like I was that kid wearing like wristbands, like, those thick cotton wristbands with like the band names on it, and like, the band t-shirts with the chains and all that shit, and like the long hair. So I was really extreme with all the heavy metal stuff, like Slipknot and also all those kind of bands, right? And I would play their music too. So for me, it was just the like aggression in that kind of music, where that was my escape, where I could just let it all out through, whether it was my guitar or the drums. I would just hit that shit and just, and then as everything progressed and training took over, and lifting weights and going to the gym, I kind of incorporated my love for that music still, which I could train to this music now, and just, bump to it that way. And it just became its whole thing in itself. So it just went in hand. But yeah, that's kind of what I was into, and what it came to be, man. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So I got to ask you, did the tattoos start when you were in high school, before high school, or after high school? Tell me a little bit about the tattoos, man.
Yeah, everyone knows me from, I mean, like, I got like my whole head done everywhere, and I literally only have, I think, my stomach and my right leg left. And I think the only reasons why I'm keeping those exposed and open is just for competing, just to, at least for judges to have some form of like clean visual on how I'm looking. But first one was in high school, man. I think I was 13. I came in, I think I started with my back, and it was like grade 9. So yeah, I was like 13 years old, already with a back tat. And then by the time of like middle of high school, I had my left side of my back done, my right side of my back done, and then like a half sleeve and my forearm done. And this was all in high school. And I remember like teachers would just look at me like I was crazy. They're like, Jesus Christ, like, what's wrong with this kid, right? But luckily, like, my parents, they gave me a lot of freedom. Like, I mean, I heard it from them, of course. They didn't want me to do them, but they knew that they couldn't control me. And whatever I set my mind to, whatever it is in life, man, like, I'll just do it, and they know that's how I was, and I'm still like that to this day. So yeah, it started in high school, and it's been a thing since. So it's been like 12 years of getting them, and like, I'm running out of space. So like, I'm just doing my head now, and it's just like, fuck.
So tell me, Jon, because I asked when Big Mike Van Wyk was on the podcast, I asked them this to him as well, because obviously he's really getting after the ink. But I've got some tattoos myself, and I love them. But what are tattoos for you? For a lot of people, it's a form of expression, right? For some people, their tattoos, each one means something very deeply to them. Other people, they just get tattoos because they love them. What is getting ink or getting tattoos for you specifically?
That's funny, man. Me and Mike, we both got tattooed by like the same artist too. So like, this writing that I got on my head is the same guy that does all his work. So it's all just, crazy small niche, that everyone knows everyone. But with me, I got tattoos, I guess, after every time. It is a form of expression. It's a way to just, represent yourself and represent myself and what I like and all that. But I feel like every time I've gotten one, it was always when I overcame something, or got over something, or accomplished something. So if I close the chapter on something, or something changes in my life, as just a reminder, right? So I got certain tattoos on me that I look at them and they bring back exact moments in my life, right? So they don't necessarily need to be something that good looking, or so intricate, but to me, it brings me right back to that period, and why I got what I got, right? So and whether it's good or bad, right? Like, there's some tattoos I have on me where I've fucked up in life, and like, I was just like, yo, I need to do something, and I tattooed myself just to know to never go back down that path again. And I always look at that, and it's just like a constant reminder, right? So that's pretty much why I got what I got, you know, good and the bad. So yeah, man.
Beautiful, man. I appreciate you touching on that. So, you're into music in high school and everything. Tell me, were you thinking about kind of just trying to make a living or a career out of music when you were in high school, or did you have some other thoughts of what you want to do once you graduated? And then once you graduated from high school, how did life unfold?
Yeah, so yeah, music was my thing, man. Like all I did was play after. Like I would literally just go to school and then just play music and escape from I don't know when did school end? Like 2, 3 p.m. I would just play till night and just do that over and over again. That's all I did, man. That was my passion for sure. Um, it was definitely a dream, you know. I hope, you know, I had a few friends, we had our band, we had our little thing going on, made some good connections and stuff like that. And then I guess just the way things unfolded in terms of, you know, like I said, being in high school and trying to figure out who you are, you know, I picked up some weights and I don't know, man, that it just took over. Like, I don't know. It was another escape for me and I loved it. And, you know, with the things going on, being the quiet kid and, you know, I wasn't happy about that, even though music was great, you know, it was my passion and, you know, you can never take that away. It was also like people looked at me like, you know, I was not the weird kid, but you know what I mean? Everyone's into, you know, like the dance music or whatever. They were rap and all this stuff and they all had their own looks. And I was always the one on my own. And I had a few couple friends that, you know, were still with me because we grew up together and that was like our thing. But I never had anyone to really relate to, you know, in a crowd. So that was the part that I was never really happy with. And that's where the training helped and gave me the confidence, you know, where I can look a certain way and people notice and all that. So I guess as things just they just shifted and it just took over, like I said, man. And that was that. And then the music thing just got pushed aside, unfortunately. Um, I still to this day, like when I still hear songs, I still see it in my head and I see what I would play on like the fretboard of the guitar. When I hear certain songs, I can see it still. So it's like, it's all there. Like, it's like riding a bike, but it's just something that I had to pick, right? I think I'm so extreme with what I do that it's just all or nothing with one thing or another. I can't be like in two different things. You know what I mean?
So
You know?
once you graduated high school, where did life take you?
Oh, so basically, you know, I went through high school, went through my share of things, you know, being the quiet kid, overcoming that through training and, you know, getting more confident. And then, you know, I applied to different schools, you know, the typical, the typical route, you know, like what every parent would want you to do. And, you know, I did think I applied for like some business program or something. I got in there and, I honestly asked myself, I'm just like, is this really worth it to spend all this money on a course that, you know, it's essentially just you can't really, I mean, you can teach business, but it's one of those things, right? Like there's only so much a book can really teach you in life, right? So I never ended up following through with the whole school thing. And I just worked out of my family company, which I've been doing forever. It's been like 10 years now too. We got a construction company, you know, that's been good. That's a lot of hard labor, but so I fell back on that out of high school. And then like I said, because of the whole training thing took over, that's all my mind was at. So just worked with the family business and then trained after. And I when I got into the scene, it was a bit late, I would say, because I'm 27 now. And, you know, a lot of guys, they get into it at like 23, 24. You see all these athletes now and competitors and they're so young, but like they don't look young because they have such a crazy, insane physique, but they're super young, right? So I think I got into it a little bit late in terms of actually getting out on the scene. but it was something I always knew that it was going to happen and I was going to pursue and go for, right? So that's pretty much how things went, you know.
So talk to me then, Jon, about once you graduated high school, you're working the construction with the family and everything. Talk to me about the training. When you first really started taking training seriously, talk about your training style and just the evolution of your training. And I know from my understanding on your Instagram, this year was the first time that you actually stepped on a stage, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about your training style in the beginning, talk about the evolution of your training, and then let's work our way up to why you decided this year to finally step on a stage and compete. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, when I first started out initially, you know, typical high school kid, whatever, I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I was just training arms and chest every day, never did legs, trained with a couple friends, you know, we had no clue. And then once out of high school, that's when things got pretty serious. Like I said, then I would just work. And then I knew I had these goals of wanting to step on stage for so long. So I would always educate myself with, you know, online articles and stuff like that. So I never had a trainer, never really hired anyone, never did any of that kind of stuff. It was all just self-taught, and there was so much information out there that I kind of just nitpicked on what to look for. I think just being who I am, I'd like to say I'm pretty good at breaking down information and dissecting things and working things out. So, you know, from the beginning, I always had a good set plan. You know, I always did like the push, pull, legs, that kind of thing. My rep scheme was always like, you know, 8 to 12. I knew all the basics, all the fundamentals, right? And then I feel like the diet was more than anything that really changed, right? So I feel like from all that time up until now with diet, it was like I was constantly under eating, you know what I mean? I was under eating and then trying to compensate, you know, on weekends, thinking I can eat whatever I want because I don't gain any weight. And then it was just kind of like a stagnant effect, you know, where I just stayed the same, still look good, you know, still look great, but I wasn't able to get to that next level until, you know, I would say maybe 2-3 years ago is when I really started to, you know, push it, and where people started noticing it too, right? So that's kind of how it went, you know, just self-taught and all that through articles, you know, and then now we're here now. Yeah.
Excellent. So tell me, Jon, like what was when you kind of first started getting exposed to, like, let's say bodybuilders, whether it was magazines or YouTube or, you know, somebody like Rich Piana, for you personally, because we all have a story. There's all kinds of different reasons why we get into bodybuilding and actually start competing, right? So for you, what was that initial draw or pull to say, you know what, someday I want to look like this person, and someday I actually want to step on a stage? Because there's a lot of people that lift weights. There's a lot of people that bodybuild without competing. So what was it for you in the beginning that really like pulled you and said, man, this is something that I want to do at some point in my life?
Yeah. So for me, like you said, I was always that person who would be bodybuilding, but never stepped on stage. And, you know, I knew my stuff. I did, you know, I lived the lifestyle, you know, all that kind of shit, but I never stepped on stage. And I always heard it from people over and over, like, when are you going to do a show? When you do this? You know, you got some pretty good genetics. Like, why not just see? And I was just like, nah, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I never had the confidence to really think, you know, I could do it. Or it was just, I was hard on myself thinking, oh, I'm not ready yet. Like, I still need to work on this. I still need to work on that. Right. So I think there wasn't anything where I seen a show and I was like, holy shit, this is what I got to do. It was nothing like that. It was more, I just needed that push because I knew the day would eventually come. I just didn't know when that time would be, or, like, you know, when the right time would be, which you find out there's no right time. Like, it's a constant. Once you even start competing, you're never going to be satisfied regardless. Like, you know, you're always going to feel you can get better and you know, work on certain things and bring up certain things, right? So I think the biggest factor that really got me to push to that next level would be my coach, Coach Little Joe. I he really got me going. So I reached out to him like 2 years ago. You know, we followed each other on Instagram. It was like for no just you know, out of social media like courtesy, you know, hey, it's another bodybuilder, cool, let's give a follow back, you know, like a couple pictures, whatever, right? And then we'd comment back and forth. And then I noticed how he, you know, his posts, he was progressing and doing all these shows, and you know, he was looking great. And I just hit him up one day and I'm like, hey man, like, because I was stuck at that plateau of never growing. I was like, hey, like, can you help me grow? Because I'm stuck here. Like, I've tried everything. Like, this is the most I can do with my knowledge. I need someone else. And you know, he was more than glad to help out. Um, and then, you know, we did a recomp, we grew, we went through a couple phases together, all that stuff. And then he was the one that was just like, you know, let's just shoot for a show. Like, why not? Right? Like, let's just do it. And I kept telling him, I'm just like, fuck, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, I didn't have the confidence in myself, but having him there as support and a backbone to really push me to do it. And then, you know, here we are now after working together for 2 years. We finally got to show what we've been working on these past couple of months for the first time and second time. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we were able to put together and what could come of it. So he was essentially the pushing, like the leading factor to push me into competing, essentially. Yeah, I would say.
I
Yeah.
love that. Now you cut out for a minute. So just for anybody that missed that, you're talking about your coach. It's IFBB Pro Joe Seeman, correct?
Yes, yeah. Coach Little Joe on Instagram. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I just want to make sure the listeners caught that. Now, I want to ask you before we talk about you competing this year, Jon. I want to ask you. So you're talking about you kind of were self-taught, and then you kind of got to that place where you were kind of in a rut. You couldn't really grow. Whatever. What was the biggest, or a couple of the biggest factors that Coach Joe brought into your bodybuilding to kind of help you start going down that road of growing and getting to that point where you did compete earlier this year? So talk about what he really helped you do to start growing. Because a lot of people are going to be listening, especially younger people, going to be like, hey man, like I'm lifting, I'm training hard, but like I'm not growing. That same place where you were at. So how did Coach Joe kind of help you start growing and pack on some size?
I feel like let's say that we could break it down in like three different aspects, or like three different you know, factors. You know, your diet, your training, and then just schedule and just stuff like that, like lifestyle. So in terms of my diet, basically my diet was, I would figure, you know, if I'm eating X amount of protein and a bunch of carbs, I'll grow, and I'll just keep adding a little more carbs in and just keep growing that way, right? But what I didn't realize is that, you know, absorption and like digestion is like a huge thing. So like your body can only absorb so much and digest so much that it allows, right? So we really worked on timing meals properly and taking proper supplements that help absorb what you're actually eating, and you know, even meal timing in general, when it's best to take, you know, all your, you know, more carbs in or more fats in. This is all stuff that I really learned with him over the years that made like a huge difference. So diet, that's for the diet, 100%. Training, I realized I was so stuck into the 8 to 12 like hypertrophy range, and then I'd have, you know, some couple pump workouts if I was feeling lazy and I just wanted to get a pump. That's how I used to be. Whereas now it's like everything's a lot more of you know, we'd have a lot of warm-up sets that are essentially, you think a warm-up set would be high reps just to warm up the joints and get blood flow, but realistically it's just like a very low rep, just feeler. They're more like feeler sets, right? We'd have more feeler sets, and then, you know, focus more on the strength for your top sets or your top working sets. And then intensifiers, you know, I learned a lot of things through him, like rest pauses that I never used to do, and, you know, cluster sets and, you know, stuff like that, where I would never incorporate. I would maybe, when I was younger, I would maybe do a drop set and just, you know, or like a superset. And that's my way of making things more intense, right? Whereas now, you know, you have things like rest pauses and cluster sets and stuff like that that you can incorporate to push through, you know, more strength plateaus. And then in terms of lifestyle, it was, I used to live a really crazy lifestyle where there wasn't too much structure. Like I would be up super late at night running around, you know, just things are all over the place. Like meal timing was all over the place. Everything was all over. Rest wasn't optimal, you know. So we worked on all these things and it kind of just all worked together and lined up and you know, became what it became, man. So I owe a lot to him for where I am and what I've been able to do so far and what we're going to be doing, you know. Yeah, man.
So talk to me then about the 2 shows that you did this year. So let's take a step back to 2020. Obviously you guys are up there in Canada. Things have been a lot, generally speaking, crazier in terms of all the COVID stuff, but let's take a step back into 2020. You and Joe are talking. What was your guys' discussion about you stepping on stage in 2021 and then kind of unpack your competing this year?
Yeah, so basically in 2020, hey, this has been like a whole you know, there's a whole process leading up to, you know, what just happened and where we're gonna go from here. But it was all a plan. Like everything was all set. It wasn't just like a sporadic thing. So in 2020, we did a recomp and we grew. So we packed on a lot of size from that point. So I dropped some weight. I think before I started working with him, I was probably, I don't know, man. I was maybe like 230, 240 at 5'9", you know, pretty heavy, good size, but wasn't in shape. So he figured let's diet down, let's recomp and you know, get a better composition before we even try to grow again. So the beginning of 2020, we dieted down a little bit, just a little mini recomp. I think we got to like maybe 200, I think, which is pretty low. We does a lot of and then we started growing from there through the whole year. And then I think I shot up to maybe like 248, 250, but a lot more better composition. Everything looked a lot better. There's a lot more shape, a lot more strength too. And then once we reached that point, that's when we decided to get into contest prep mode. And it was about, I think it was like a 16-week prep. It's about 16 weeks. And then if you count the other 4 weeks for nationals, it was pretty long, man. It was like 20 weeks of prepping. So like half a year almost. So basically I was growing. And then for the rest of the half of the year after that, it was all just getting ready for the show. So it was crazy. Yeah, man.
So talk about your first show then.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, what were your feelings? What were your emotions? Did you really enjoy it? Talk about it, because this has been a long time coming for you, right? And I think just from your story, you know, you had to kind of overcome maybe some personal fear of getting on stage and working on that self-confidence. So just talk about that first show, and then I'll ask you about the second one. Okay, Jon?
The first show, we did the Montreal Summum Classic that passed. It was when October or something, I forget. So my thoughts, like, I was constantly doubting myself, you know, constantly breaking Joe's balls, you know, asking if I'm ready, because it's like when you don't have the experience doing a show, you don't really know what you're supposed to be looking like at 8 weeks, at 7 weeks, at 6 weeks, right? So not really having any judgment on okay, this is how we're things are, you know, where things are supposed to be. Not having anything like that in my mind of knowing how everything's going was really like playing its tricks on me, right? But you know, I just trusted Joe. I trusted the process. That's what everyone told me. Everyone that I talked about to were just like, just trust your coach. You got to trust the process. So I trusted Joe on everything and just let him take the reins and just go with it. So then we finally got to, you know, 1 week out, and things were looking good. I was pretty confident. Um, yeah, man, it went well. We were in the heavies. So nationals, I was a light heavyweight. Regional, I was a heavyweight. Personally, I like the heavyweight look a bit better. I'd love to compete at heavyweights, but we just needed, wanted to make sure we were like really sharp for nationals. So we brought it down to light heavy for nationals. But yeah, man, the one thing I realized is just trust the process of what your coach is telling you. As long as you got a good coach and he knows what he's doing, you'll be set. You just gotta just trust in it, man. That's all you can do. Yeah, yeah.
How did that first show go in terms of placing for you?
So in that show, I got second in the heavyweights. I was the lightest. So we were trying to shoot for light heavies in that show, but unfortunately, I was like 2 pounds over the weight limit. Just because of the carb up and all that stuff. It is what it is. Like Joe didn't really want to sacrifice us staying, like we didn't want to sacrifice fullness just to make a certain weight class. So he's like, so be it. If you're going to be the lightest guy in heavyweights, at least it's the best look that you got. And that's what we're bringing, right? So we didn't care, but we were shooting for light heavies, but we ended up being in the heavies. It went well. Yeah, I got second. The guy who took first, I believe it was another guy from Quebec or Montreal somewhere, but he was like, he competed in national levels at a national level so many times, like it was really unexpected. So when I was there, I was just like, damn, how am I gonna stack up against this guy, right? Because we weren't really planning on having that kind of level of competition at a regional show, right? But regardless of whatever happened and how things went, I was super happy with it, man. It was good. Stepping on stage for the first time ever, like with all the lights shining on you and everything like that, it took me by surprise because like that shit's so bright, and you got all the adrenaline going in you because especially it's my first time. So like even just to hit the poses and to get into these poses, like man, it was tough to keep everything just tight and like controlled because it was a lot of different feelings. But yeah, I was happy with the way things went, man. Yeah.
I mean, it's I compete myself, and people from the outside in terms of the bodybuilding world, and especially like the competitive bodybuilding world, like they'll ask you questions, right? And it's really hard, like especially like when you're in prep and they see your body changing, they see you getting leaner, and they ask you like what are you eating and all these different things. Like it's so hard for me to kind of explain it because it's like they're not going to get it, right? So and that's the thing too. It's like, man, until you actually step on a bodybuilding stage, you don't get it, and you won't get it, because there's just so much going on, especially when it's your first time or your second time. Like so many feelings and emotions, and like you're talking about that posing, like there's a lot that goes into it, huh?
Yeah, for sure, man. I feel like posing's everything. Like that's a huge aspect that could like make or break you. And luckily, I worked with one of the CPA. He was like Mr. Toronto in like the 90s and all this stuff. So he taught me all the basics and like the runaround on how shows go. And you walk out and you do your presentation, and then you do your comparisons, and then you do your routine if all goes well, right? So he taught me the basics, but then Joe really broke down, how to hit a pose and how to squeeze your glutes and how to squeeze your hamstrings, best foot positioning, how to, you know what I mean? All the nitpicking stuff. That's where Joe really came into play too. And he really got me looking completely different from what, how I used to pose. And it can completely change the look on someone's physique just on the way on how they hit a pose, which is crazy. But
so
yeah.
What was did you talk to some of the judges after your first show? And if so, what was some of their feedback for you, Jon?
Yeah, so basically, after the first show, because like I came out of nowhere, they liked what they saw. They were happy with it. I talked to them beforehand too about like all the tattoos and stuff because I wanted to get those covered up, and they told me just leave it, just be yourself. They're like they don't mind that, whatever, you know what I mean. So I left them. The main thing is that like I said before, they wanted me a bit more sharper. my glutes weren't in at that weight. You know, they weren't shredded or like, you know, stuff like that. They're still hard. Things still look good. My hamstrings still had, you know, the lines in them. Everything was pretty good, but they just wanted that extra little crispy look, right? So that's where me and Joe, for the next 4 weeks, we worked on bringing things down for nationals, just to make sure that we gave them a look that they wanted and what they asked for, right? So yeah, man.
So talk to me then about 4 weeks later, you competed in Canadian nationals. That's a pretty big step up, right, in terms of competition. So talk to me about that experience.
That was like a night and day experience for me. So I feel like that was really where everything set in, and I was just like, wow, I'm here, you know. So basically for the 4 weeks, I just busted my ass just to bring down the weight, tons of cardio, you know, very little carbs. Just, you know, I would say those 4 weeks are probably harder than the whole prep that I did prior. You know, and it's like, I'm sorry for all the people that I've, you know, at the gym that I just didn't want to talk to or mouthed off to, or just said something to, because I was just so moody based off of feeling like garbage, right? But the results came with it, and you know, we brought a lot sharper look. So we did light heavies. I remember like being backstage, you know, in the pump up room, and like I'm seeing all these national qualified guys who've been doing it forever. Like they've been doing it for, like, I had guys coming there doing it for years, and like it's like their fourth, fifth time at nationals. And there's names like, you know, Robin Graham and stuff like that, where these are names that I've known forever, like around the scene. And I'm there up on stage with them, and I'm just like, shit, like I'm actually doing this, you know. So yeah, that's where everything really set. A very professional show. But you know, I held my cool. I you know, just even though I was like freaking out inside in my head, because it was literally my second show, like this, there, I still felt like I wasn't really part of it, or like I was still new to things, you know, and I'm just there, right? I kept my cool and just, you know, contained myself, and things went well, you know. Like we got the first call outs, you know, a top 5, which was something that I always told people, if I can get like a happy, you know.
You still there, Jon?
Hey, yeah, someone just gave me a call here. Hey, 1 sec. There we go.
Yeah,
Someone
you're
was
good. You're good.
got the call.
So you got in the top 5. Keep talking about that.
Yeah, so basically I've always told people, like, if I can make a top 5 at a national show on my second ever show, like still feeling new to this, I'd be like I'd be ecstatic, right? Like that was something that you know, I know 5th doesn't really seem like much, but to me it was something, right? Because at least it was something to say that, okay, at least I kind of belong here. And it's like, okay, you can make something of this. Like it's a foot in the door, right? So now that we have that foot in the door and we're requalified, it's like we're going to really shoot for the next year to actually just, you know, do some damage and try to bring a really good look, you know. So yeah, man. Yeah.
So is kind of your guys's mindset then right now, Jon, you're going to take the entire year off, and then the next time you'll be on stage is Canadian Nationals in 2022?
So what we're thinking is there's the pro qualifier October 8th, which would be at the end of the year. So we're thinking we could probably, you know, make it for that one. So that's what we're aiming for. We're gonna do October 8th, the pro qualifier there. The show I did it was the Toronto Pro that just passed, but they rescheduled that to like June earlier, like June 4th or June 5th, which isn't enough time to really progress or make any gains, right? So we're thinking that the pro qualifier on October 8th would be the best bet, and then we go from there. So we'll see what happens, man.
Talk to me a little bit about what you and Joe have talked about in terms of you know, what's the game plan? What body parts are you really going to focus on? Kind of talk about that physique that you need to develop to gun for that pro card next year.
He pretty much has the whole game plan already set, and you know, because we already went over things. And I was asking him right away. I'm like, all right, where do we go from here? I was ready to just put in the work, right? But Of course, we got to take some downtime to, let the body recover. And then, we hit it hard again for the off season and all that. But some things we really want to bring up is just overall thickness in my back and width in my back. I feel like in a lat spread, things look okay. But in terms of when I hit a rear double, things can be a lot more fuller and thicker. So we want to bring up the back. We want to bring up the traps and also the arms. So these are all things that we're, put on size, training, all that. Well, hopefully we can, bring a better package for October 8th. I think we will. I'll be busting my ass. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know, man. That's super cool and exciting. Now, do you have like a future vision or a future goal for bodybuilding, or are you just going to kind of let it go as it takes you?
It's a little bit of both. Like I'm still gonna go with however things fall. I don't want to be so fixated on like I need to be a pro by this date or that date, because you never know who shows up. You never know anything, right? But obviously, always progressing in the right direction. I've always said it. So like me and my girlfriend, we've always said it. It'd be super cool if like, I could turn pro and then, open up a little niche gym that's, hardcore, that, it's more for that, the competitive bodybuilding crowd, and, you got your apparel and stuff like that. And, that's something that I'd love to do. And like, that would be like a passion of mine that I'd really enjoy for a business or work. So down the road, I'd love to have my own gym and be able to be a pro and call myself a pro and, be competitive at that level. But it's really just, we're taking it as it comes, man. Like, just letting it unfold. Right.
Absolutely, man. That's super smart. Now, we're gonna wrap up our conversation here in a couple minutes, Jon. But before we do, in regards to bodybuilding, you said, kind of this prep and competing this year kind of taught you how to trust the process, right? But overall, like bodybuilding, kind of since you really started taking bodybuilding serious in your early to mid 20s, whatever it was, what do you feel like bodybuilding has taught you or given you as a human being, as an individual?
I feel like, yeah, man, I feel like it's taught me so much. It teaches you, it teaches you discipline and work ethic and those doubts in your mind, you have to trust yourself and trust the process, like we said, and things will work through. Essentially, just discipline and work ethic that some people don't realize how much it really takes in this sport, because it is like a cosmetic kind of thing where you're judging someone based off of how they look, and it's just like, oh, the average person will think, oh, if I lifted some weights and ate the foods and took the supplements, I can look like that. I could do that. But once you step on that stage and you really go through a prep and put yourself through that, that's when you really realize, holy shit, like these guys, it's like it's a 24-hour, 7 days a week job that not many people can do, right? So it really taught me just to be able to put in that work ethic and that, just nonstop, effort, right? That, like I said, not many people can do in this life, but if you could do it, I mean, it shows, it'll pay off, right? And it'll show through your physique or your placings or in success in anything, right? So that's one thing I think I really from the overall process, man. Yeah.
It's the grind, right? I mean, bodybuilding really teaches you how to grind. And if you can take that from bodybuilding and, like you said, apply that into other areas of your life, man, like you're going to win, man. You're going to win. Right.
It's exactly what you said. It's that grind, man. Like if you could do it in bodybuilding and get through a prep and crush that and crush your goals that way, you can get through anything, And I feel like a lot of bodybuilders, they don't get like the credit that they deserve. You know what I mean? For what it looks like from the outside, because a lot of these guys, they bust their ass and it's a whole other level, right? And that's what I've realized. And I love it. I still love it. You know what I mean? I love that grind. You know, I wouldn't change it for a thing, you know? So we'll see what happens in the future, dude. Yep.
All right. So wrapping it up here, I want to ask you, and again, this is kind of for maybe some of the younger listeners that are just getting into bodybuilding or kind of dabbling in strength training. You said that you kind of taught yourself how to lift weights, and then at some point you reached out to Joe and he kind of took you to that next level. From your personal opinion, Jon, if somebody's thinking about getting into bodybuilding, thinking about competing, should they reach out and find a coach immediately? Or do you think they should maybe learn their body on their own, learn how to work out on their own, and then at some point after that foundation is laid, reach out to a coach? What do you think?
I feel like, you know what? I really feel like it's something it's a double-edged sword, man, because there's two ways to look at it. You know, if you're someone new, you don't want to be wasting a coach's time if you're really not 100% into it, you know, and then that's not really right on the, you know, for the coach to be, you know, putting in the work and the effort to try to get you in shape and you're not really willing to do it. So there's that whole thing. But if you're really set on it and you know that that's what you want to do and that's what you want to be, I feel like hiring a coach right away is probably your best bet, because it kind of, you know, there's so much information out there now that you could be pulled so many different ways that, you know, luckily I was able to kind of figure it out myself and nitpick and take away certain things and grow that way properly. But there's so much out there that could throw you off and pull you in the wrong direction, that jumping straight into it with a proper coach is your best bet, because they will, you know, guide you along the way, make sure everything's in line, you know, as long as you're willing to put in the work and do it, you know, 100%.
Great advice, man. All right, Jon, I want to kind of give you the opportunity to share any final thoughts, any final words that you have. Once you do that, please feel free to share your Instagram, how people can connect with you and follow along. If you have any sponsors or any other, you know, shout outs in terms of, you know, significant other, coaches, whatever, the platform is yours. So any final thoughts, social media, shout outs, go for it, my man.
All right, guys. So I want to do a big shout out to my coach, of course, which you've heard a lot in this video, Coach Little Joe. Super great guy, super humble guy. Took top 3 at the Toronto Pro, which is just went down, you know, and he has a bright future ahead of him. I think he's gonna do some serious damage. So shout out to Joe. If you need any training, you know, coaching, and it doesn't have to be competing, it could be lifestyle, just anything, contact him. Big shout out to Monster Factory. They've been supporting me a lot lately. Big shout out to them. So, you know, they're a great apparel company. They got a few supplements too. And then, yeah, you could follow me on Instagram at jon.xl. That's my personal Instagram. You can see everything on there. And then Jon XL Bodybuilding is my YouTube channel that I'm trying to build up its followers and you know, build up a following. You know, you could follow me there, watch some vlogs, competition day stuff. And that's it, man. I just appreciate you having me on it's good to be a part of it, and, you know, to see a little bit of a background story to my life.
Absolutely, man. You're very welcome, Jon. And I just want to thank you for taking a little time on the holiday weekend, man, to share your story and chop it up. Okay.
Sure, dude. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Anytime.
You're welcome, dude. So all of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you. Just quickly as we wrap up this conversation with Jon, if you guys want to connect with Jon, make sure you go to Instagram and give him a follow. His Instagram will be in the show notes on all the podcast platforms where you're going to find Behind the Muscle podcast. If you ever want to find out where the guest's Instagram is, or you didn't catch it in our conversation, you can always go and find the guest's Instagram in the show notes. So make sure you go give Jon a follow on Instagram. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Also hit that like button on YouTube and then go down in the comment section. I always enjoy getting the feedback. I always enjoy reading your guys' comments on YouTube. So please leave a comment. Maybe your favorite takeaway from today's conversation with Jon, something that you learned from his story. Just share any of that, all of that in the comment section on YouTube. And then one final favor I would ask of all of you, if you would please take this episode specifically of Jon's and share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Jon and tag Behind the Muscle so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it. Also, when you guys share on your Instagram stories, it's just a great way for more people to find the podcast. More people are going to listen to the podcast. And the name of the game for Behind the Muscle for me is that people are going to listen and people are going to be positively impacted by these bodybuilders and coaches' stories that they share on Behind the Muscle podcast. So make sure you're sharing this on your Instagram stories. And finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.